Welcome to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. Our goal is to help you maximize your church's potential. You'll hear from top leaders in children's, student, and family ministry about the principles and practices they use. Now here's your host, Nick Blevins.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast, or if this is your first time listening, welcome. I'm Nick. It's the Family Ministry Podcast where we talk about children's ministry, student ministry, family, next-gen ministry. And in this episode, we're talking about volunteers. So last week, we heard 7 volunteer ideas from Christine Kreischer. This week, you get to hear 7 volunteer ideas, mostly about recruiting, from Jim Wideman, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, patriarch of children's ministry. Jim Wideman shares 7 great ideas for volunteer recruiting. I love hearing him talk about how his mindset has shifted on some things over the years with where we are now, and you're going to love hearing that as well. You can get all the links and notes at nickblevins.com/episode 222. And before we jump into that, Ministry Boost membership is open now, and it's about to close. It closes this week. In fact, if you listen to this the day it comes out, it closes in 2 days. And we're going to have the brand new Volunteer Boost course is a part of membership. The brand new, yet to be completed frequency course is going to be a part of membership. And that's all about helping your volunteers go from serving once a month to serving every other week. And then from serving every other week to serving weekly. So in other words, if you have, if you need 20 volunteers every week, you can have 20 volunteers. If you don't need 80 because they only serve once a month. So the idea is to boost that volunteer commitment. And this course will teach you how to do that, lay out a plan and a strategy, give you scripts and a timeline and all of those things. So really, this could be easier than recruiting. But certainly if you did both of these things together, you could really make a difference in your volunteer team. But Ministry Boost membership actually includes over 30 courses, 5 resource bundles like the volunteer bundle, the new family retention plan, tons of bonus content things like the Discover kit that you can use to develop leaders in your ministry, or the Volunteer Huddle archive content that you can use when you're huddling up your volunteers. All told, there are over 55 products and resources that are part of membership, and that's just going to keep growing every quarter. So head to ministryboost.org to check that out. Look for membership. Again, if you miss it, there's a wait list where you can sign up or wait, to hear about the next time it opens, which won't be for another few months. So if you're interested in membership, think about getting it for your whole church. It's $27 for an individual, but it's only $47 a month for your whole staff, which is obviously the best deal. So check it out, ministryboost.org. And now let's listen to 7 volunteer recruiting ideas from Jim Wideman.
Well, I want to hand it over to you here in just a second. But here's one thing I want to say about Brother Jim here is that he's literally written a book on there's amazing book, Volunteers That Stick, like principles, tried and true principles. But Jim didn't just pull out the book. Oh, there it is.
It's out. It's out of print. One of the great things that happened through COVID is my books got returned to me. So I'm getting to redo. Every 19 years or so, you ought to change your material. Hopefully you learn something. And so I'm going through Volunteers That Stick and rewriting. It's got a whole lot more volunteer leadership edge to it. Like Christine was saying, this book has a lot about doing. The new book is going to have a lot about being. And it's just so good to live long enough that you get to rewrite the stuff that you came up with the first couple of times. And
that's what I love about what you said, because I messaged you a couple of days ago or a week ago, and I figured you already had hey Jim, can you share 7 ideas? And you're like, no, I gotta put some thought into this because it's changed. Leaders are younger. Yeah. The church isn't what it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago when you wrote that book. And what I've always appreciated about you is that you are always learning. You're the guy who's been around, but you're always learning. You're listening to your daughters. You're listening to young leaders. You're constantly inviting them.
I'm listening to my grandkids. My oldest grandson turned double digits today. And so
happy birthday.
It is so fun. And so, it's you got to keep reinventing yourself. Kids are totally different than they were. What's so funny? My original 12-year-olds at my first church are turning 57, and it's just one of those things that it's all changed, and the great thing about Facebook for me is getting to see faith that lasts, faith that sticks, faith, and it's just trying to be, if the people you're speaking to have to Google what you just said to understand it, then you didn't do your homework to start with. I got on because I wanted to learn. I wanted to watch the little videos and want to see how many of the points I was going to talk about Christine used, and different things and how to change up things. But, I don't, one of the things, and I love what Christine was talking about, changing your mindset, because so many times in ministry, we just think things have to be a certain way. And, all a stronghold is just thinking wrong information. And it's crazy to me in the recruiting world how we think of this as something we have to do rather than just a natural overflow of what we're called to steward and be. And, you're never going to have enough workers. You're always going to be looking for more. You're always moving folks up and changing, promoting. And so it's kind of like in a business. Everybody wants to be recruited at the top, but those entry level positions are, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, they're always going to be vacant and open. And that's where you just continue as you promote folks and do things. But again, I think one of the mistakes that we make when we look into recruiting is we don't spend time ahead of going out talking to people and knowing what we're looking for. And I think so many bad hires, so many bad decisions have been we were not specific and knowing what we need at every age level, at every position, and really thinking, if people were no problem, if I could write the gifts that I wanted this person to have, what would I be looking for? And so I think you have to ask yourself, where could I use a servant leader? And how many do I need? Look at each age group, look at position. Don't forget about middle managers. So many times, the general doesn't decide who drives the Jeep. And so many times we don't look at our ministry from an organizational standpoint of, where do we need middle managers? Where do we need coaches? Where do we need folks? And Christine, I loved what you said about limiting people that lead in different places. I use 12 just because 12 disciples, 12 tribes of Israel. In the Bible, there's kind of 12 is a number of government. And so, being an old Word of Faith guy, I like those number scriptures and a little numerology there. But it's kind of fun it's so much fun to have those middle managers. How many folks, when do you need to branch off where there's another coach, there's another coordinator, there's just pure square footage on a Sunday. How can you take care of that? So I think that's the first thing, is really doing your homework and dreaming. And again, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. So what is your goal that you are looking for in those areas? And that's really another shameless self-promotion. Stretch is a great book on structure. My favorite comic is Far Side, and my favorite Far Side is Boneless Chicken Ranch, where a lot of children's ministries, they look like they have little chicken heads, little chicken legs, and little chicken arms, but because there's no skeletal structure, they can't go where they're wanting to go. And that's really what organization and structure really is, just skeletal systems. And so in the book, we talk about the difference between a growth structure and a maintenance structure. And early in my ministry, I had 7 kids at my very first church. The great news that is 5 of them were in the ministry. But the cool thing about all that is, when it got up to 20, 30, 40, 50, it was still in that growth structure. But when we hit that 75, you can take a minivan out of the country and it'll hold a lot more people than 7. But in America, it holds 5 Americans, because there's that, you're not going to get grown men, especially in the South, on that back seat. And it's one of those things that, and looking at that becomes where you're stuck. It becomes a maintenance structure. And the only way that you're going to grow past that without people complaining and griping is to sell the minivan and buy a full-size van. And so that the structure is bigger. And that's really the same thing in our ministries. So many times your dreams don't match your structure. Your goals don't match your structure. And so that homework on the front end of when I was at Church on the Move, I inherited the old 1,600 seat auditorium, and the thing was just massive. I don't know how tall the roof was, but every time I walked in, all I wanted was to put in a second floor. But because the structure was set for just one floor, although we had the room, we had the capacity, had all that stuff, had the money, we could have put a second floor. We just killed everybody because the structure couldn't handle what was happening. That's the same way with vision, the same way with goals, same way with building a ministry. And you've got to be specific of how many you're looking for. And I know we're in the middle. We are launching a new service this weekend. We're getting ready to launch our first campus in a few months. And, we know exactly how many preschool folks. We know exactly how many elementary folks we're going to need for those things this week. We're going to have that new set of leaders in place, but it was something that we came up with rather than I'll just go find them and then throw them in a place. And so spend that time. Also, the skill set and gifting is so important. Kenny talked about his Enneagram number, and it's one of those things that you have to match the gift set and the personality. One of my favorite stories, we know about a good fit. If we're going to look for a job, we don't want to go to a church where it's not a good fit, but we don't think all the time of a great fit for volunteers. And that fit is so important. I was got a call years ago, and it's kind of funny. This mother said, every time my kid comes on Wednesday night in the 2-year-old class, they have nightmares. Well, you don't need the gift of discernment to figure out there's a problem in the 2-year-old room. So I just used my MBWA degree, management by walking around, and went to the 2-year-old class and saw what was going on. And I'm like a lot of folks, it just looked great to me at first. And I was thinking, that mom had temporary insanity. There's nothing wrong. And then all of a sudden, the main teacher's husband pulled out this bag. And in this bag was a cow's tongue. So get this picture, 2-foot kids, 3-foot tongue. And when he whipped that sucker out, there was great crying and gnashing of tooth. It was just crazy. And I said, aha, here's the problem. I got a part in the wrong place. Now, the man was not evil. He had good intentions. He was not suited to be in the 2-year-old class. His gift set, I moved him to 5th and 6th grade boys. And I got calls again, but it wasn't calls of horror. It was calls of, where did you get this guy? And I didn't have the heart to say out of the 2-year-old room. But I want you to see that so many times we'll take somebody because they're willing to go, rather than asking if you ask, you need an ear, eye shows up, and we don't ask the eye, can you hear? And again, he's going, what? I see you, what? And we've got parts in the wrong place. And so sometimes our ministries are like Frankenstein. And it's one of those things that we just have to understand where that right fit is and match those things. There's a big difference in when we think about people that are calming and for preschool, and that before youth ministry, you want that middle school stuff. You want that rah, here we go. Let's do something crazy together, kind of person. And so when I'm on the lookout, I look for how outgoing are they. Same thing. If you want somebody to help with your check-in system, you want a computer nerd. You want somebody that just loves a good database. And so again, look at that personality. Like Christine said, look what people do for a living. Those high capacity leaders, especially, if you organize, you work for car parts, you're over a region of all these warehouses and things, you can sure handle supplies for preschoolers and crafts and things. And so it's important to know what you're looking for. I am convinced, out of all the people that I've ever coached, I wouldn't say 100%, but I'd probably say 97% of those folks, when I ask them, are you happy about your prayer life and your spiritual life right now? 97 of them said no. When I asked, could it be improved? And they say yes. Most of the folks that I'm coaching and working with right now, we've had to start on just that personal time with God. And, when you look at the 30 things in Scripture that Jesus did to find and release workers, he started his ministry with prayer. He prayed for those that he led all the way through. And he prayed them in, he prayed them through, he prayed them out. And, so are you praying that God will lead you by his Holy Spirit to the right folks? Because in my years of ministry, I found people need to be needed more than I need the help. What being needed has done for people. And so it's just a spiritual thing. I want to be led to the right people to be able to do that. And then again, Jesus went to the wilderness, and yes, he was tempted of the devil, but do you think in those 40 days and nights that he was praying and fasting, that he might have mentioned the first thing he did when he left the wilderness? And that was he started recruiting folks. And so again, spend time praying. And here's the thing. If you're not praying and caring, like Christine was talking about a minute ago, that caring for the leaders you have now, why should the Lord give you some more that you're not going to take care of? You're not going to pray for. And so what I try to do is be a good steward of what I have right now so that I will be ready for more. And so pray them in, continue to pray. Again, another shameless plug, learn some time management. Make an appointment to pray for your leaders. It's just something that comes up on my calendar, something I do on a regular basis. And I just, the power of an appointment is probably one of the overlooked tools on a tool belt. But it's important that you pray for folks and make time for prayer. And so pray them in, continue to do that. My third thing is kind of, again, Christine was talking about change your mindset. I quit asking a long time ago. I just say, when are you going to start? this, or why aren't you serving? Or, hey, I want you to hang out with me Sunday. I'm going to show you one of the greatest things that's happening in our church. You want to see a move of God? I'm going to show it to you Sunday. Meet me here at 9:00. And I just show them. And then I'll say, okay, I'm going to start the onboarding process with you. And I never ask. So they couldn't turn me down. I just draft. But as I started working with millennials more, I've changed my drafting to just inviting to the party. Nobody wants to be left out. And so, I love what Christine said. I see this in you. I don't even talk about them. I talk about what's going on and what they're missing. And talking about those things. And again, one of the reasons, now my huddles do have fun, but I also make every huddle give me a God story. And so we know what the Lord's doing. And so I use those things from the huddles that I learned to invite folks to the party. And it's just unreal. Our kids praying for one another and on their face before God. Go to TBCO Kids on Instagram, and it's just, we get folks to want to be a part of our ministry just from our Instagram feed. And so show what God is doing. Show the fun people are having. I know comms and communication, social media was something that I never thought that I'd be relying on so much to be able to tell the story of what God's doing in our ministry. But, a lot of our kids' activities that we do are really Instagrammable moments for hipster parents. And so we want to provide those, but we also want to show the power of God. So it's one of those things that we also have encouraged our leaders, our present volunteers, to who needs to be a part of this. Who do you know that needs to be a part of this? And again, we don't realize that Jesus didn't even recruit all 12 disciples. There were, 3 of those that were brought to other people, brought from other people. And so it's one of those things that we have to constantly be inviting. I liked what y'all were talking about a minute ago about the number asked so many times. It's just sales. It's really and truly read any great sales book and it'll give you some great recruiting things. But I have found that when I'm inviting rather than asking or even drafting, this generation likes that. The fourth thing that probably Kenny and Nick never thought I'd say is simplify the whole process. I am the father of the 5-page worker application, and I don't do that anymore. If it can't be done on a 1-page intake form online, I just turn that 5-page app into a 1-page online intake form. Again, we got to wake up and smell the millennium. It's one of those things that I don't use paper, not in public. And it's one of those things that it's important that we do. Go over the findings. I don't know what it is about children's ministries, but we've made the background check like this thing that hovers over all workers, but we never let them know, hey, your background check came out fine. And that's kind of how I start things is just relieving the tension in my personal interview that we have with folks and that initial thing. And so we go over the findings. I also put a deadline. Most people I know in children's ministry make that onboarding process too long. If you recruit them on Sunday, they ought to be all done and at least having their personal interview by the next Sunday. And again, if you don't set a deadline, I don't know about y'all, but I wouldn't fill out my income tax if there wasn't a deadline. And deadlines cause you to do things. And so back beat the clock. I set a deadline for everything. It's just like I was on time. Although Kenny and them were late, I was on time. I jumped on. I will quit when my time. If you go over, you did it on purpose. And so it's one of those things that I just think you have to set a deadline. We say we need people, but then we don't put them in for a month, 2 months, or whatever. And again, with online background checks and so many of those things are so much simpler than they were 40 years ago. And so it's one of those things that make it simple. And again, that's good. Again, there's 2 questions every volunteer wants to know. What do you want me to do, and how do you want me to do it? And so my 250-page worker manual that I came out with in the 90s has turned into about a 4-page download. And the only reason it's 4 pages is it has lots of pictures. But it's one of those things that we answer those questions. Again, we're living in an online tiredness society. Everybody's got Zoomitis, but I'll start more video stuff again once Zoom's over, where my whole onboarding and orientation process might just be from a video that's sent, while we're processing folks in that week. I'll send 3 different videos saying, watch this while you work out, or look at this and do some of that training. But I found that the more high tech, the more high touch that it's calling, and people want to just sit down to a cup of coffee again. And we're able to do that here in Nashville a little bit. We've opened up and opening up more and more and more. But again, it's just you've got to release them. And another thing that I realize, and maybe you guys are more spiritual than me, but I know I didn't even pray for folks for years before they got into the classroom. And I realized, when you commission and pray somebody in, and new workers, and during those huddles, have that prayer time where we welcome, but we also launch and release them spiritually, it makes a huge difference. And so again, answer those questions, make it simple, and use a lot of different ways to do that. In Volunteers that Stick, I talked about the difference between a volunteer occupation and a volunteer job. And that's one of the things that we started assigning a mentor. You can't get a job that there's not a 90-day probation period. And at the end of that 90-day probation period, we want to make sure they know what they need to know, but we also want to make sure it's a fit. And so what Christine was talking about, being open-handed in their placement, I'll literally assign somebody for 30 days. At the end of that 30 days, my team meets with them and says, how's it going? Do you like this? Is this even a good place? And if they don't, we'll just start another 30-day, assign them to another mentor, go over that. And before I make a long-term placement, I want to make sure that, it's good for the volunteer as well as good for the church. And again, that's something I think we have to take a little more time ease them into serving and helping them to find their right fit. And like Christine said, if it comes out, it's not children's ministry. We'll move them over into youth, or we'll look at another area. At my church, I'm over most areas, so I don't feel defeated if they go somewhere. I just got another worker in another area. Kenny, I don't know. This is 2 churches in a row. I'm actually 3 churches in a row. I'm over coffee, and I don't know if that's because I drink too much coffee. I don't know what it is, but I always get over coffee somehow. I don't understand that. And it's kind of fun. The last thing for me is to train by modeling, coaching, and out of relationship. Training, I think Christians are the only people group that confuse the word training with verbal instruction. Training is watching or observing, asking, doing under supervision, and then release with relationship. And I think that on any secular job, there's training involved. Rather than have a little talk, cut them loose and say, I love that 3-2-1 stuff on the back of the, I'm going to steal that in a heartbeat. But it's one of those things that, those 3-2-1s can be different in different areas within the whole ministry. And, and so I think that was a great idea. But training is more than verbal instruction. Modeling is one of those things that I have always rotated my workers in teaching. I let all of the, we call it, we're an Australian church, and so they call it a 2IC, second in charge. But any of the depth or your assistants or folks, they ought to be teaching or leading once a month, so that, being an Alabama fan, the key to winning championships is to have depth at all key positions. And whatever team has depth, 2 and 3 and 4 deep, is going to do well. And it's no different in your ministry. And so the only way people get better is to have playing time. And so my lead teachers will only do at most 2 Sundays in a month. There's my second string will teach one, and the third string I'm developing will do another. And it's one of those things that that's how we were ready for another service. That's how we're ready for another campus. And it's that totally building depth in your ministry. And that comes by modeling. That comes by letting your second and third string lead worship. I know this is probably an orange no-no, but I like more than one in a small group because, again, I'm developing depth and those kind of things rather than just having that one person with that one few. But again, model what's going on in every area. I also oversee, feed the flock of God that is under your care, serving as an overseer. Those are 3 models. We're either feeding and teaching people how to feed. We're either caring and showing people that we care, or we're giving oversight to an area. And that's one of those things. And so I catch people doing things right. I call it fat boy bearded management, where I make a list and I check it twice, find out who's naughty and who's nice. And I always start with nice and try to just find people doing something well. I start every Monday by rocking it old school and writing a thank you note, thanking them for what I saw them doing with our family ministry and loving on folks. And so hopefully when I do have to correct something, we have enough emotional equity where they know, other than their mama, nobody loves them more than Jim. And it's one of those things that, have you noticed I'm dropping the brother? But again, wake up and smell the millennium. And so it's one of those things that you just have to coach folks up, catch them doing things right, make corrections and love, lead out of relationship. I found that another thing I like to do is if somebody needs to grow in the area, say you have a preschool teacher that just needs a little help in storytelling, I try to ask them to go to another class that is somebody just doing great things that we already have. Rather than me show them how to do it, I let my volunteers who are doing something well show and model to other volunteers and say, come over here at this service and just watch this teacher, how they tell stories and do things and spend a little time with them. I also let other leaders kind of give their ideas and expertise. I'm not near the model that I used to be. I'm the proud granddaddy that's cheering on all the folks that are doing something great. And so I think it's important that we realize that, yes, we're always looking for volunteers, but we're also coaching up and making sure that there's a model and the training needs to happen.
Well, it doesn't get better than Jim Wideman, right? He is the best. He's just hilarious. I need a book of all Jim Wideman's stories, like the ones that, like, he was sharing some of his stories and some of his analogies. We just need a book of those. And some of them are in some of his books, which you should definitely check out. Love that he's updating some of those. That's going to be a really good thing. So check out the notes at nickblevins.com/episode 222. Here are a few action items I thought of coming out of Jim's ideas. One, like he said, define what you're looking for. I think that's changed a little bit, right? With pandemic, different roles, different ways we're serving and ministering to people. So define what you're looking for. Simplify the onboarding process. That was a great tip. One of the ways that his mindset has shifted over the years, and ours may need to be simplified. So if that's you, go ahead and do that. Like he talked about, have one conversation one week, and the next week they can be taking that step towards getting plugged in and serving. And then invite them to a party. And a party might look different in pandemic. Maybe it's a really fun Zoom call, which a lot of people would just say there is no such thing as a fun Zoom call. But whatever you can do to make that fun, maybe it is something if your church is gathering in person, you can find some way to do that in person. That would be a great thing. As I mentioned in the beginning, Ministry Boost membership is open, but it's closing here real soon. You can get the new Volunteer Boost Challenge, the new not yet built or released frequency course to help you boost the frequency and commitment of your volunteers. So if they serve once every month, help them move towards serving weekly, which would do so much for your volunteer team. But most importantly, for those who lead kids and students directly, for those volunteers, it will do so much in their relationship and discipleship of the next generation. So check that out at ministryboost.org. And then I'll catch you on the next Family Ministry Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. We hope this helps you maximize your church's potential. We would love to hear stories of how you apply what you've learned. You can do that by leaving a comment on iTunes or in the show notes at nickblevins.com.